Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After graduating high school, I had big dreams of going to college and becoming a successful business person. But when my mom got sick and needed full-time care, those dreams had to be put on hold. I needed a job that could pay the bills and give me flexible hours to take care of her. That's how I found myself as a donation attendant at our local Goodwill. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid decently and allowed me to adjust my schedule when needed. Plus, I got to see the generosity of our community firsthand. Most people were kind and grateful, happy to donate items they no longer needed. But after almost 4 years on the job, I'd seen my fair share of entitled folks too. You wouldn't believe how some people act when they're getting rid of their old junk. It's like they think we should be kissing their feet for deigning to give us their worn-out clothes and broken appliances. Anyway, this particular incident happened on Labor Day weekend. We were swamped with donations, as usual for a holiday. It was just me and my co-worker Jenny in the back, struggling to keep up with the flood of customers. I stepped outside to let the woman waiting know I'd be with her in a minute. But before I could even finish talking, this other lady, let's call her Karen, marched right up, shoved the waiting woman aside, and tossed a filthy vacuum at my feet. Then she just walked off like it was no big deal. I called out to Karen, telling her she couldn't do that and needed to wait her turn, like everyone else. But Karen just ignored me completely. Frustrated, I brought the vacuum inside and tossed it in the trash. It was broken now anyway. I told Jenny what happened, and that's when I noticed Karen coming back with more stuff. I went back out to try again. I politely asked Karen not to dump her items there and to wait in line like the other customers. Karen responded with vulgar language, insulting me and declaring that she didn't care about our rules. She said she was going to dump her things there, and I couldn't do anything about it. She stormed off to her car again while her husband stood nearby, glaring at me menacingly. It was clear he was trying to intimidate me, so his precious wife could do whatever she wanted. I brought in Karen's latest load of junk, all of it unsellable by the way, feeling pretty angry at this point. Jenny had seen Karen's outburst this time and looked ready to intervene. The nice lady I'd been trying to help earlier was just standing there awkwardly, looking embarrassed for all of us. Right on cue, Karen marched back with her third and final load. When I tried to stop her again, she completely ignored me, shoved the nice lady out of the way, and barged into our employees-only area. That's where she came face to face with Jenny. Jenny attempted to tell Karen that she couldn't enter that area, but Karen responded with more profanity. She yelled that this was Goodwill and she was giving us free stuff, punctuating her tirade with more vulgar language. She threw her trash at Jenny and stomped out of the building. But karma wasn't done with her yet. 2 more cars had pulled up behind Karen's, effectively trapping her in line. She was absolutely seething at this point. Karen shouted at us to get our manager, threatening to have us fired. I grinned as I pointed out that the manager was actually Jenny, the very person she had just cursed at. Karen's face went white as a sheet when she realized Jenny was actually the manager. She huffed and shuffled back to her car, where she had to wait awkwardly in line, just long enough for our security cameras to get a good look at her license plate. As soon as Karen finally left, Jenny and I went straight to the office to review the security footage. We couldn't believe how clearly it had captured everything. Karen's assault on the other customer, her verbal abuse, and even her husband's intimidation tactics. Jenny expressed that this behavior was unacceptable and stated her intention to call the police to file a report. I was surprised and asked if we could really do that. Jenny affirmed that we absolutely could, explaining that Karen's actions constituted assault, trespassing, and creating an unsafe environment. I felt a wave of relief knowing that Karen wouldn't get away with her behavior. Jenny called the police and they arrived shortly after to take our statements and review the footage. They seemed just as appalled as we were by Karen's actions. The officer assured us they would follow up on this case and that we could expect to hear from them soon about pressing charges. True to their word, we got a call a few days later. Karen had been identified and was facing multiple charges, including assault and disorderly conduct. Her husband was also being charged as an accessory. The icing on the cake? Karen and her husband were both permanently banned from all Goodwill stores in our area. Jenny even had their photos distributed to other local charities and secondhand shops as a warning. It turns out karma can be pretty swift when you've got clear video evidence and a manager who doesn't take any crap. I have to admit, it felt pretty good to know that entitled behavior like that wouldn't be tolerated. Maybe next time Karen will think twice before treating donation center workers like garbage. My cousin and I were always close growing up, but things changed when she got engaged. She'd always been a bit of a perfectionist, but this wedding turned her into a complete bridezilla. When she announced her engagement at a family dinner, everyone was thrilled, of course. We all hugged and congratulated her, but then she dropped the bombshell. My cousin excitedly shared the moment with us and expressed her anticipation for our involvement in her perfect wedding. She described her dream of a fairy tale ceremony and asked for our help to make it truly magical. I eagerly offered my assistance, asking what she needed. She then explained that she wanted her wedding to be the most beautiful, Instagram-worthy event ever. To achieve this, she said she needed all of us to look our absolute best. At first, we thought she meant fancy outfits or professional makeup, but no, she had something much more extreme in mind. She shocked us by revealing that she had arranged for everyone to get plastic surgery. She assured us not to worry about the costs, as she would cover them. She just urged us to schedule our appointments as soon as possible. The room went silent. We all stared at her, mouths agape. My aunt was the first to speak up. My aunt expressed disbelief and concern, explaining that plastic surgery was a serious matter and that we couldn't simply change our faces for the wedding. My cousin responded emotionally, insisting that it was her special day and she wanted everything to be perfect. She questioned why we couldn't do this one thing for her. Things only got worse from there. Most of us refused outright, but a few caved under the pressure. My cousin threw a fit, crying and screaming about how we were ruining her big day. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. I attempted to explain that while we loved her and wanted to support her, her request was excessive. I emphasized that we weren't dolls she could reshape to fit her vision. She retorted angrily, claiming that if we truly loved her, we would comply with her wishes. She accused us all of being selfish. She stormed out, and for a while, we thought that was the end of it. But oh, how wrong we were. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. At first, I thought it was the wedding invitation. Instead, it was a cease and desist letter, threatening to sue me for intentionally sabotaging the aesthetic quality of her wedding photos. I called my aunt immediately. I asked my aunt if she knew about the situation, informing her that her daughter was threatening to sue me. My aunt apologized profusely, explaining that they had tried talking to my cousin, but she wouldn't listen. She revealed that these letters had been sent to everyone who refused the surgery. I expressed my disbelief at the situation, stating that my cousin couldn't possibly think this would hold up in court. My aunt agreed, acknowledging the absurdity of the situation. She assured me they were trying to handle it, but admitted that my cousin was out of control. Despite the threats, none of us gave in. We decided to attend the wedding anyway, hoping she'd come to her senses by then. How naive we were. The day of the wedding arrived, and we all gathered at the venue. The atmosphere was tense, with people whispering and casting nervous looks around. Then, the music started, and the bride began her walk down the aisle. I'll never forget the collective gasp that filled the room. The woman walking towards us was completely unrecognizable. She'd gotten so much work done that she looked like a different person entirely. Her own parents didn't recognize her at first. The father of the bride questioned who the woman was, while the mother expressed shock as she realized it was their daughter. The groom looked bewildered, frozen in place at the altar. As she reached him, he finally spoke. The groom asked who she was and where his fiancée was, clearly not recognizing her. The bride playfully responded, asking if he didn't recognize his beautiful bride. The groom expressed his confusion, noting that she looked nothing like herself and questioning why she would do this. That's when all hell broke loose. The bride started screaming at the groom for ruining her perfect moment. Guests began arguing, some defending her, others criticizing her extreme actions. In the chaos, someone accidentally knocked over a candle, setting a centerpiece on fire. As smoke filled the room and the fire alarm blared, I found myself standing next to my aunt and uncle, watching the mayhem unfold. I expressed my disbelief at the unfolding situation. My uncle regretfully stated that they should have put their foot down earlier, acknowledging that the situation had gone too far. My aunt expressed sorrow for her daughter, questioning what she had done to herself. In the end, the fire department had to be called. The wedding was a complete disaster, with half the guests leaving in disgust and the other half too shocked to do anything but stare. The bride was last seen crying in a corner, her expensive makeup running down her unrecognizable face. The groom left the venue alone, shaking his head in disbelief. I overheard him talking to his best man as they walked out, saying that he couldn't marry someone he didn't even recognize, stating that this wasn't the woman he fell in love with. The best man offered his sympathy and suggested that perhaps the groom had dodged a bullet. In the aftermath, my cousin tried to follow through with her threats to sue, but no lawyer would take her case. She ended up becoming a cautionary tale in our family and community, the bride who went too far in pursuit of perfection. Growing up, I struggled with anxiety and depression, especially during my college years. It was a dark time. I felt lost, overwhelmed, and like nothing was going right. My therapist suggested finding a creative outlet to express myself, so I started drawing. One day, I sketched this little doll character. There was something special about him. His big eyes and gentle smile made me feel calm. I poured hours into perfecting the design, choosing colors, shading every detail. That's when I got the idea to bring him to life as a real doll. I searched for months to find the right person to help create him. We spent forever picking out the perfect materials. Soft fabrics for his body, silky threads for his hair, and hand-painted glass eyes. It wasn't cheap, but the process of creating him gave me something positive to focus on during those hard days. When I finally held him in my hands, it was like a piece of myself had come to life. He became my comfort object, reminding me that I could get through anything. Some people might think it's silly for a grown woman to be so attached to a doll, but he means the world to me. Things got better over time. I finished school, started my career, and learned to manage my mental health. But I've kept my special doll close all these years, as a reminder of how far I've come. That brings us to yesterday's family gathering. My older sister and her 6-year-old daughter came over, and everything was going fine at first. After lunch, my sister was tired, so I offered to watch my niece while she napped. I brought out my collection of stuffed animals and dolls for us to play with. When my sister woke up, we hung out for a bit longer before they got ready to leave. That's when things took a turn. My niece expressed her strong desire for the doll I was holding, asking if she could have it. I gently explained that this particular doll was special to me, but offered her the choice of any other doll or stuffed animal instead. My niece, persistent in her want, suggested that the doll could be her upcoming birthday present. Again, I kindly refused, reiterating the doll's importance to me and trying to redirect her interest to the other toys. The situation escalated when my niece began crying, adamantly insisting on having that specific doll. My sister intervened, pressuring me to give the doll to my niece. She dismissed my attachment, suggesting I was too old for toys and should grow up. I stood my ground, explaining that the doll held significant meaning for me and wasn't just a toy. I restated my willingness to get a different doll for my niece's birthday. My sister's frustration grew, accusing me of being ridiculous and childish. She demanded that I prioritize family over what she called a stupid doll. My niece's crying intensified into screaming, still demanding the doll. Despite the pressure, I remained firm in my refusal. They left in an upset state with my niece still wailing. I felt terrible about upsetting them, but also frustrated by their lack of understanding regarding the doll's importance to me. Later that evening, I received a passive-aggressive text from my sister. She expressed her disappointment, stating that my niece had cried herself to sleep. She accused me of caring more about a toy than my own family and suggested I should feel ashamed. After taking a moment to collect my thoughts, I responded calmly but firmly. I apologized for my niece's distress but explained that it didn't justify dismissing my feelings or belongings. I reiterated the doll's significance in my mental health journey and reminded her of the alternatives I had offered. I emphasized the importance of respecting boundaries and teaching her daughter to do the same. I clarified that my love for my niece wasn't measured by giving in to demands and expressed hope for a more productive discussion in the future. To my surprise, I received a response a few hours later. My sister explained that she had spoken with our mother, who reminded her of my past struggles and the doll's role in my recovery. She apologized for pressuring me and using hurtful language. She suggested a new approach, proposing that I share the doll's significance with my niece in child-friendly terms to help her understand and learn about respecting others' cherished possessions. I expressed my appreciation for her apology and agreed with her suggestion. I proposed planning a day the following week where I could spend time with both of them, explaining about the doll and then going shopping together to choose a special birthday gift for my niece. My sister readily agreed, thanking me for my understanding and expressing her love. Although the family gathering hadn't gone smoothly, we managed to turn it into a learning experience for everyone. It reinforced the idea that respectfully standing your ground can often lead to better understanding all around. After years in the bustling city, I craved change. The constant noise and anonymity had worn me down. I longed for a place where I could breathe easier, where neighbors knew each other, and where I could have that garden I'd always dreamed of. In 2017, I took the plunge. I found a charming house in what seemed like the perfect neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, and the promise of community. It was everything I'd hoped for. As I moved in, friendly faces greeted me with welcoming smiles and casseroles. It felt like I'd stepped into a Norman Rockwell painting. But every paradise has its serpent, and mine came in the form of the elderly couple living directly across from me. At first, I thought they were just shy or hard of hearing. I'd wave and call out good morning only to be met with blank stares or scowls. Still, I persisted, believing in killing with kindness. I prepared plates from my barbecues for them, thinking good food brings people together. They'd accept it with mumbled thanks and quickly shut the door. I kept an eye out for their packages and delivered misplaced mail, hoping each small act would chip away at their icy exterior. As weeks turned into months, I noticed a pattern. It wasn't just me they were cold towards, it was everyone. The first time I witnessed one of their infamous screaming matches, I was shocked. On a beautiful Saturday afternoon, some kids were playing in the street, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Suddenly, the elderly man burst out of his house, red-faced and shouting. He yelled at the children, calling them brats and threatening to call the police. The kids scattered, their fun ruined. I stood there, mouth agape, unable to believe what I'd just witnessed. It wasn't the last time something like this would happen. I learned from other neighbors that the couple had a habit of calling the police for the smallest infractions. A car parked slightly over the line, police. Music audible from someone's backyard barbecue, police. It was as if they were waging a one-couple war against joy in our neighborhood. Despite this, I kept up my attempts at kindness. I noticed they had their yard treated regularly, and the little signs warning about the chemicals would often be left to wither away. So I started removing them when they got old and tattered, figuring it helped keep the neighborhood looking nice. This brings us to today. I woke up early, had my coffee, and decided to mow the lawn. As usual, I noticed the couple's treatment sign looking worse for wear. It had been there for 2 weeks, way past the recommended time. So, I did what I always do. I pulled it out and tossed it in my trash. About 45 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. To my surprise, it was a deputy. He explained that he was there about a complaint from my neighbors across the street. They claimed I had been causing them problems and specifically mentioned that I threw away a sign from their yard. I explained to the deputy about the lawn treatment sign, mentioning that I had removed it because it had been there for 2 weeks, well past the recommended time. I told him that I had been doing this for years to help keep the neighborhood tidy and that they had never complained before. The deputy gave me a look that clearly said, "You've got to be kidding me." He sighed, shook his head, and went to retrieve the sign from my trash to put it back in their yard. As he did this, I could see the elderly couple on their porch, muttering and pointing. The moment the deputy left, they scurried back inside. That's when I decided enough was enough. If they wanted to play by the rules, we'd play by the rules. I took a picture of the sign and sent it to our Home Owners Association, reporting it as a violation. The HOA has strict rules about how long these signs can be left out, and 2 weeks is well beyond the limit. I've tried kindness for years, and it's gotten me nowhere. Sometimes, you have to speak a language people understand, and for some, that language is consequences.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.